have the onerous responsibility of introducing Dr. Chaulia's scholarship. For those of us who belong to the OP Jindal Global University, Dr. Sreeram Chaulia does not need any introduction nor elaboration. He is one of the most prolific scholars and profound thinkers our university has hired, and we are very fortunate that we have somebody like him who is really inspiring a generation of students as well as faculty members in his through his academic work. He has also been recognized as an outstanding teacher, and we are all very happy about that development as well. I have known Sreeram for many years, as we both were students at Oxford. I have known Dr. Sreeram Chaulia for over 10 years. We were students at Oxford. Even though I was pursuing legal studies and he was doing his history honors, we've had many conversations about various issues relating to international affairs. And I've always found him in a very keen sense of observing and understanding the world. I remember very vividly as students at Oxford, Sreeram, myself and my wife Pratibha, we had started what is known as the Oxford South Asian Forum, which is one of the few sort of informal student forums bringing together students belonging to South Asia and to discuss issues relating to South Asian affairs. And during those conversations, I clearly saw in Dr. Sreeram Chaulia a very strong sense of commitment and dedication to academia and to research and to creating knowledge. Of course, over the years, as many of you know, Dr. Chaulia, after his studies at Oxford, went to the London School of Economics, did his Masters in International Relations at LSE, and then pursued his PhD at the Maxwell School of Citizenship at Syracuse University. And Dr. Chaulia has been a very prolific writer, as many of you know. He has over 400 publications, both academic as well as professional writings, including writings in newspapers, magazines, as well as rigorously researched and peer-reviewed journals. He has already published 2 books, and this is the 3rd book which he has authored. After and while pursuing his PhD at the Maxwell School of Citizenship, Dr. Chaulia also spent a substantial part of his life, both before and during and after his PhD in Sri Lanka as well as in Philippines, and this book has indeed originated through his rigorous field work in both Sri Lanka as well as in Philippines. He was associated with the noted humanitarian organization called the Nonviolent Peace Force, and many people who have worked with him have acknowledged his contribution. So today, when Dr. Chaulia asked me to, in many ways, talk about his scholarship, I thought the best way that I could do is to engage his professors, people who taught him, people who saw him in close quarters. And so some weeks back, I had written to some of his professors at the Maxwell School of Citizenship, and also some people at the Nonviolent Peace Force, and told them about this occasion, and they have sent some messages, and I thought that will be most appropriate for me to read some of those messages here. To start with, I would like to read a message which I received from Professor Horace Campbell, who was his supervisor, professor at the Maxwell School of Citizenship at the Syracuse University, a very well-known authority in African American studies and a globally renowned political scientist. And I quote, "This book, International Organizations and Civilian Protection, Power, Ideas and Humanitarian Action in Conflict Zones by Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, is a major contribution to understanding modern humanitarianism. It clarifies the differences between genuine acts of human solidarity and the manipulation of humanitarianism for militaristic and profit-making ends. Dr. Chaulia did not do this research from the safety of Europe and North America. He actually inserted himself in the communities of Mindanao in the Philippines. Sreeram did not pontificate about conflict zones. He brought out the realities of life for ordinary people in these zones. Sreeram wrote up this research as a doctoral candidate in the Department of Political Science at the Maxwell School of Syracuse University. The Maxwell School of Citizenship is the #1 school of this type in the United States, and the work of Sreeram has added to the reputation of this school as a space for intellectual diversity." He distinguished himself in the process of writing by establishing his intellectual independence and his clarity of the need for a kind of scholarship that does not betray the interest of ordinary people. Sreeram's clarity was also manifest in the fact that his writing was completed in a record time. I was pleased to work with Sreeram, who was my doctoral student. He brought to the university the kind of internationalism that characterized great thinkers and Indian diplomats such as Jawaharlal Nehru. The launch of his book today is one more positive contribution to our understanding of human tragedy as the world is being called upon to support the people of Somalia. Dr. Chaulia's book will assist policymakers in all parts of the world who believe that the foreign policy tool of humanitarianism should be independent of long-term military planning, unquote. I have another quote from Professor Francine Amico. She says that I am delighted to have this opportunity to send my warmest congratulations and best wishes to my friend and colleague Dr. Chaulia on the publication of his important and insightful analysis. All too often, academic researchers focus on the big picture in what might best be called the macro or top-down approach to the study of international relations. In this book, Dr. Chaulia reminds us of the small picture, the many human faces of the people who constitute the micro or bottom-up reality of life in a conflict zone. As a participant observer, Dr. Chaulia makes clear in this unique analysis that these people are not just victims struggling to survive, but rather agents and activists who can organize and triumph in the face of extreme adversity and hardship. He also reminds us that while international organizations like the United Nations have an important role to play in addressing conflict situations, so too do we, as citizens of the world, share that responsibility as we not only hold those organizations accountable for the work they do, but also recognize the role that we all can and should play in helping to resolve these conflicts. In counterpoint to the negative messages often carried in the media and standard academic texts, his work restores hope in the resilience of the human spirit. It has truly been a delight and an honor to work with Dr. Chaulia in the years he was preparing this text, and I have learnt a great deal from him in this process. I wish him well in his future work, and I congratulate him on this wonderful achievement. There are some more messages which I will not read. I will read one message which I received from the Nonviolent Peace Force, which is the humanitarian organization which he was working. Steve Alston, the country representative of Nonviolent Peace Force, and Dr. Christine Schwelter, who is the program director of the Nonviolent Peace Force, have said the following. We congratulate Professor Dr. Chaulia on the release of his new book. He is a former colleague of ours working as an unarmed civilian peacekeeper in both Sri Lanka and the Philippines. We are proud to see that he has been able to use the experience he had gained during working with us and is able to bring fresh knowledge and new insights to both the community of peacekeepers as well as the academic and political world. We hope that this study will add to the wealth of critical analysis that helps us all understand the most effective ways of reducing violent conflicts and protecting civilians, unquote. I would once again congratulate Dr. Chaulia for his outstanding contribution, not just this book, but also his plethora of writings and his significant contribution to an important area of research. I am particularly grateful to a lot of people who encouraged and supported his work over the years. I know that Dr. Shashi Tharoor has been his idol and inspiration for many years as a fellow Stephanian and as also a diplomat and somebody who has worked for many years in the United Nations. I am also particularly thankful to our Chancellor, Mr. Naveen Jindal, who has constantly inspired and encouraged each one of us and challenged us to make our university much more relevant to the day-to-day interests of both our country as well as around the world. This contribution of Dr. Chaulia is in many ways a reflection of our own commitment to maintaining the highest standards of academic excellence in teaching and in research. Naveen Jindal's vision is in many ways being fulfilled through the process of critical academic writings as well as research. Thank you very much.